Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to dive right into the historical and spiritual phenomenon of Shirdi Sai Baba. Now, just imagine a historical figure whose actual identity is a total blank slate, yet whose influence literally shapes the daily lives of millions across the globe today. It's a completely captivating paradox. So today we're unpacking exactly what the historical records, and honestly the glaring gaps within those records, reveal about a man who sits squarely at the crossroads of history, faith, and human psychology. Let's get into it. Section 1. History's Unsolved Mystery. We're looking at a massive historical paradox here. A figure who commands absolute devotion from millions, yet we have no recorded origins for him. This really brings us to the central enigma that our sources grapple with. Was Shirdi Sai Baba merely an ordinary, eccentric holy man, or was he the living, breathing embodiment of the supreme truth people call God? How you answer that usually depends entirely on whether you're looking through the lens of academic history or deep personal faith. Think about it like this. India has been home to thousands of saints, and for almost all of them, history recorded their birthplace, their lineage, or at the very least, their family tree. But for Sai Baba, there is absolutely zero proof of birth. His caste remains a total mystery, and his religion is a subject of really intense debate. Yet, despite this complete anonymity, he's universally worshipped by millions of Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, and seekers worldwide. His absolute lack of a defined label actually ended up unifying deeply divided communities. Now, since human nature kind of abhors a vacuum, oral traditions naturally rushed in to fill in these blanks. Some claim he was born into a Hindu Brahmin family. Others firmly place his roots in the Muslim fakir tradition, while some argue he was a highly realized yogi from South India. But honestly, perhaps the most intellectually fascinating theory from our sources is that he intentionally hid his roots. Why? Well, to force people to seek the universal truth he represented, rather than getting caught up in all those superficial sectarian divisions. That intentional anonymity ties directly into his primary teaching, which is simply, I am not a body. He was constantly trying to strip away those physical identities that we humans use to categorize and divide ourselves. He was essentially challenging his followers to look past flesh, blood, caste, and religion and engage directly with the consciousness beneath it all. Section 2. Silent Penance in Shirdi. Our documentary sources describe his arrival as quiet but deeply disruptive to the local norm. He was reportedly just 16 years old, but he definitely didn't act like a normal teenager. He didn't seek out a temple to pray in, he didn't look for a mosque. Instead, he just sat in silent meditation under a neem tree. Many of the villagers initially shunned him, just dismissing him as a madman. But a curious few were drawn to him because, even as a kid, he radiated this profound, almost unnatural peace that simply defied ordinary human experience. Section 3. The unique philosophy of Dwarkamai. When he eventually did choose a permanent dwelling, it perfectly embodied his total rejection of boundaries. He chose to live in a dilapidated, broken-down Muslim mosque. But, in a seriously radical move, he named this mosque Dwarkamai, which translates to the motherly city of Lord Krishna, a highly revered Hindu deity. Just think about the magnitude of that in a divided society. By naming a Muslim structure after a Hindu concept, he sent a revolutionary message. Religion lives in human consciousness, not in bricks and mortar. He never once tried to create a new religion, nor did he base his teachings on complex sacred texts. His philosophy was based entirely on lived experience. At his core, he taught Sabka Malik Ek, meaning one God for all. And he really only demanded two things from his followers: Shraddha, which is deep faith, and Zaburi, immense patience. He emphasized service, compassion, sacrificing the ego, and seeing the divine in every single living being. It is a beautifully simple list, but as is true today as it was then, incredibly hard to actually master in our daily lives. Section 4. Saint, God, or miracles? Before we even get into the supernatural claims, we have to look at what the man actually said about himself. The historical record is crystal clear here. Sai Baba himself never claimed to be God. Whenever people praised him, he would constantly deflect, repeating phrases like Allah Malik, meaning Allah is the master or God is the master. He always pointed upward, maintaining that the Almighty was the true orchestrator of the universe, not him. But here's where the historical record hits a fascinating roadblock, and the sources raise a brilliant rhetorical question. If he was really just an ordinary saint, an eccentric guy living in a broken-down mosque, how do we explain the enduring power of his legacy? Why do literally millions of people today still claim to experience his presence? How do we objectively explain the intense, ongoing belief in the healing power of his udi, the sacred ash from his fire, and the continuous claims of miracles happening right now at his samadhi, his final resting place? To remain completely impartial here, we really have to look at how these events are interpreted across the spectrum of human thought. On one hand, the oral traditions of devotees are filled with phenomenal stories. We're talking about lighting oil lamps with water when the merchants refused him oil, curing deadly diseases with just sacred ash, and providing divine protection across vast distances. On the other hand, historians and scientists view these through a strictly objective lens. Academics classify these as deep matters of faith and subjective personal experience, pointing out the lack of verifiable, empirical proof for supernatural feats. So it's this really fascinating clash between pure devotion and empirical data. Section 5. The world's shared pilgrimage. Regardless of where you might stand on the debate over miracles, his historical, sociological, and cultural impact remains absolutely profound. In a world completely obsessed with categorization, he never once asked a visitor, "What is your religion?" or "What is your caste?" He only cared about one thing: do you have love in your heart? By focusing entirely on human compassion, the dusty, unknown village of Shirdi has transformed into a massive, bustling pilgrimage site that literally belongs to everyone. Ultimately, our documentary sources come to a pretty beautiful conclusion. Whether you believe he lit lamps with water is entirely beside the point. His true historical miracle wasn't a supernatural parlor trick. It was his ability to reignite the extinguished lamp of belief within humanity. He managed to unite deeply divided people under one single umbrella of shared humanity. And so we leave you with this final thought. Sabka Malik Ek. God is one for all. It's a deceptively simple message, yet it fundamentally challenges how we view our identity and the artificial boundaries we build between one another. In our intensely fractured modern world, if a silent teenager sat under a tree today and asked us to discard all our labels, would we be brave enough to listen? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. We'll see you next time.
नमस्कार दोस्तों, कैसे आप लोग? आशा करता हूँ हम लोग अच्छे होंगे, स्वस्थ होंगे, सुरक्षित होंगे। आशा करता हूँ कि आपको ये वीडियो पसंद आया होगा। ये वीडियो अगर पसंद आया होगा तो उसको लाइक सब्सक्राइब जरूर कर दीजिएगा। मिलते हैं फिर नेक्स्ट एपिसोड में, तब तक के लिए गुड बाय।